So I got this comment on a video that I did about the bill that almost passed in the Senate that would have allowed for the physical genital inspection of teen female athletes, and how anti-trans laws are really anti-women laws because it's about policing the expression of gender, which dramatically impacts women. Now, please don't harass this person. I went to her profile. I think that this comment was made in good faith, and I'm going to point out the issues with it, but I think that it leads us to a really important and valuable conversation that we can have about this. And the first thing I want to point out, especially as a female athlete, is that women's sports have never been women's controlled spaces, because historically, coaches, scouts, athletic directors, team doctors, the guy who decides how much airtime the WNBA gets have all been men. All of the positions of power within women's sports have been men historically, which is why we get news headlines when there's a female head coach hired for a job. So understand that women's sports is a male-dominated space. The athletes are there, but the positions of power are still by and large not held by women. The second thing is, there's no way to get around that this comment is transphobic. I don't think it was meant that way, but it is. Because what the implication is here is that trans women are not real women. And that's where we get the opportunity to have this conversation of what makes a woman. Now, it is completely reasonable in our current climate for women to be afraid of losing our rights, losing more autonomy, losing our freedoms, losing our access, losing our equality. We are not protected in the Constitution. We do not have equal protections in this country, and our rights vary state to state. So it is completely reasonable to have that fear, but trans women are not the threat. And again, this comment forces us to have the discussion of what makes a woman. Now, right-wing and conservative and fundamentalist groups will say, well, a woman gives birth. But we know that that's not it. We're more than our physical body. We know lots of women who can't give birth, or women who are past menopause who can no longer give birth. They're not less women because of that. That's not the defining standard. Or your period, same thing. Postmenopausal women are not less women because they don't experience that. So is our body part of it? Sure. Is the way that we express our gender part of it? Of course. But I would say by far the greatest determinant of what makes a woman, what makes us part of this community of women, is our shared experience. We all remember growing up, we remember that first time as a child or a preteen where we were sexualized by a grown man, or the catcalls, or the grooming, or the your uncle's coming over, you better not wear shorts. We all remember what it's like to be sexually harassed in and outside of the workplace, still do in many cases. We know what it's like to walk into a room and immediately be discredited because we're a woman. We know what it's like to have to work twice as hard to get to the promotion and still sometimes get passed over by a dude that doesn't have the same credentials and experience you do. We know what it's like to get paid less, to have the doctor dismiss our pain because women are hysterical. We all know what it's like to help someone out of we all know someone who's experienced domestic violence. Some of us have had to leave it ourselves. Some of us have helped get someone out. Some of us have lost friends to it. We all know what it's like to know that the world isn't built for us. That we're like treated as some niche subgroup of the species instead of half of it. We all know what that's like. We all know that experience. We know the experience of unbelievable and impossible standards of our body and performance, that we're supposed to be perfectly fit and perfect like skin all the time. And we got to work full time, but the house has to stay clean. We got to do everything for the kids. We got to cook. We got to do, but you can't have a breakdown. You need to smile more. We all know what that experience looks like. And we've all seen women create life in and outside of the womb. We've seen women lift up communities and overcome obstacles in the last 50 years where women were given a semblance of financial equality. We have skyrocketed. We have taken over higher education. We have continued to climb the ladder. That's part of what this patriarchal extinction burst is about, is because women are surpassing men. We're outperforming them because we got a shot. That's all we needed. And I gotta really shout out, because white women know what it's like to have to work twice as hard to get the promotion. Black women have to work about 4 times as hard. And they outpace everyone in higher education right now. So imagine, we know what these experiences look like as a woman, what it's like to exist in this world. Now imagine being born a biological male, especially a white biological male, and the world is built for you, right? Everything from the sidewalks to how public transit is built, safety in cars, medicine, it is built for you. You just got to show up. You get paid more with the same credentials, more than your black coworkers or your female coworkers. Now imagine being born with that. And you not only choose to risk your family, your community, your church, your physical safety, to go through this grueling physical and emotional process of permanently changing yourself, but also sacrificing all of that advantage you were born with to be a woman. Nobody loves volleyball enough to do that, to just play a sport. Nobody wants to get into women's bathrooms enough to do that. The only logical conclusion of why someone would be willing to sacrifice so much, give up the advantages that come with being a biological male forever. This is not putting on a skirt because you like the fashion, cosplaying a woman, and then taking the advantage back when it suits you. This is giving it up. The only reason someone would do that is because in their core, they know, I am a woman. And it's not about empathizing with women. It's, I choose to live your shared experiences. Putting myself often in more risk because trans women are much more likely to experience physical and sexual violence even than biologically cis women are. That's the only reason someone would go through this. That's powerful. I was born a woman. I love being a woman. If I had been born a man, I don't know that I would have had the courage to do that, even if I wanted to live as a woman. If anything, trans women who have chosen to be part of our shared experience are maybe our greatest allies. Because it's people who saw who we are and what we experience and gave up everything they were born with to be here. Trans women are not the threat. Patriarchy is. And the attack on trans women in particular, right? Because there's a big focus on trans women over trans men. Not to say that all trans people aren't under attack, because they are. But attacking the rights of trans women is the pathway to attack all women. Now, why is that? It's because of what fundamentalism believes. Now, fundamentalism and republicanism are the same thing now. Christian fundamentalism is now a political party. And the reason that they are so obsessed with genitalia is that they believe that everything about you, your work, your purpose, and your role in this world is determined by your genitalia the second you are born. Let me explain. From the time you're born into fundamentalism, you learn that acceptance depends on obedience. And the genitalia you're born with in Christian fundamentalism determines who you'll be attracted to, how you dress, what your role in society is, what your role in the home is, the God you serve, who you'll vote for, what you look like, how you dress. They don't teach you how to think, they teach you what to think. And consent plays no role in this, especially for women. This is the underpin of modesty and purity culture at all ages. Fundamentalists would rather cover up babies for their safety than demand that men stop touching babies. They are citadels of protecting sex offenders because the belief is that the female genitalia is for the use of men and the promoting of his genetic line. Their stringent view of God can't handle any mobility or flexibility or change. The trans identity threatens the entire structure that holds up the church because the entire church is founded on white male patriarchy and the subservience of women. Without those strict, narrow gender roles, it collapses. It completely and utterly fails. And trans identity in particular threatens this system. Women are told to save themselves. Women are burdened with all sexual sin. So you have to cover up and you can't have sex and you can't do this. But also, if it does happen to you consensually or not, it's your fault. For evangelical men, it's all about what's under there. Can I sleep with it? Can it make babies? I don't want you in the public sphere. I need you at home. God says I'm in charge, and I say get your in the kitchen. And it threatens their ideals of fundamentalist parenting. Parenting and fundamentalism is not about expression or learning how to be a free thinker. It's about falling in line. They call it like breaking a child's will or train a child up. And trans people in particular threaten this ideal that if I tell my kid that they have to follow this regimen, they're going to stay with it their whole lives. That's why they consider universities to be propaganda hubs, because it teaches kids how to think freely. It breaks the dogma. It breaks the propaganda. They lose male-dominated patriarchal control. The end game for fundamentalism is white male dominion. And let's talk about how all this anti-trans conversation is already affecting women. Because when you open the floodgates to hate trans women, that gun is pointed directly at all women. The Bible doesn't say anything against trans people, but let's see how this violence plays out towards women. In the NCAA, there are 10 trans athletes out of 520,000 athletes. But Republicans have made over 700 bills in the last year alone against trans people. Texas is proposing that being trans is a felony. Think about what happens when the law tells you you can only express your gender this way. This photo of Angel Reese was published on Twitter 2 days ago, claiming she has a mustache. It was edited to give her that mustache. She doesn't have one. But why engage in this? Well, one, she's black. Two, she's really tall, she's really athletic, and she's not doing what a pretty woman is supposed to be doing. She is a fully employed professional athlete. In both Utah and Florida, teen high school athletes have had to leave their schools after being accused of being trans because they looked masculine, or they were muscular, or they wore baggy clothes. When trans women are targeted, any woman who does not fit the traditional gender role of women or who does not tailor her appearance to the male gaze will be accused of being trans, will experience persecution, and will have those rights stripped away. The Republican conservative fundamentalist movement has been very clear that they want to reverse no-fault divorce. They don't want women to vote. They want white women in the home, not women of color. Remember, it's white women they're targeting with that. Why? Why would they support these laws that are clearly so unjust? Because it fits in their paradigm of a woman's role based on the genitalia she was born with. A man should be voting for his wife. She shouldn't have an opinion. God has decided that he's in charge of the home and in charge of her. Divorce, she shouldn't be able to leave a man. Her body is his property. It's also why many fundamentalists don't believe that domestic violence or marital rape are crimes, because a woman, based on her genitalia and their perversion of the scripture, has decided that she is owned. I truly believe that at the end of this, however long this is, we are entering the age of woman. I truly believe that. But the only way that we're going to do that, especially in the face of what's happening right now, is that we have to stand up as women right now, immediately and consistently, for all women. Do not be blindsided by doctrine that says gender has to fit what a white male says it has to fit. Any woman at risk is all of us at risk.